Hello and welcome to this edition of the Central Virginia Sport Performance Podcast. My name is Jay DeMayo, and today I've got the pleasure of speaking with 2015 presenter and University of Iowa's Landon Evans. Guys, Landon gets into some really neat stuff, breaking down how their department is kind of advancing and let's say coming up to the next generation of dealing with athletes, and how the staff there at Iowa Strength and Conditioning is evolving and moving forward with it, and then gets into really, just the one-on-ones type with the athletes and the teams, and how these new models that they're developing and the advancements that they have as a staff are building all the way down to the individual student athlete. It's really neat stuff. I'm really excited to hear what he's got to say at the 2015 seminar, because if this is just a taste of what we got, then I'm really excited. I hope you guys enjoy the talk as much as I did. What is exciting you about what's going on at the University of Iowa?
Well, first I just want to thank you for asking me to come back again. Every time I think this will be the fourth time there. Always coming back, just more motivated. Usually around this time, you start to feel like, you're doing the same thing over and over and over a little bit. There's some times of monotony, which is fine, but then you start to interact and you start to hear people speak, and then, the after speaking engagements and whatnot, it's a great time. So thank you. So exciting. Well, if there wasn't anything exciting going on, it would be a pretty sad job, though, huh?
Yeah.
So, I think probably in three areas. If you want to talk about the athletic department, in the last 2.5, 3 years, there's been this thing kind of brewing in the background, and we've been slowly forming this sports performance group. And the sports performance group is really a group of individuals that are really just trying to break down barriers and really just break away from this siloed approach of doing things and just trying to get just more integrated. So we've been having a lot of good backing from the athletic department. But really it's really tricky because there's many teams that we're trying to influence. Within all those teams, there's many different coaches from many different perspectives. But fundamentally, the group is just trying to come together and allow that we have a same language, and we're believing in the training process together. But again, it's a big task in our eyes, but in our eyes, there is no other option. So this is how we have to do things. It's not, let's see how it works here and here. It's just we have to commit, to all teams. As a department, we could probably definitely sit back and just maintain our status quo roles within, say, strength and conditioning. Or we can break away from, the models that are essentially driving a lot of the problems that we face today, and just step up and, find a more fulfilling reason about maybe really like why we're doing what we're doing. And we feel more integrated. Everyone is important. Everyone has equal say. And at the end of the day, the success is from many. It's not just one. So just getting really, I think, too, just the support people, athletic training, nutrition, psych, strength coaches, etc. Anyone that's a part of that, academics, really feeling integrated within the success of both the health, the academic success, and then hopefully then the sporting success too. One of the things that we're doing quite a bit of hasn't really started, but we're doing a lot of work on the back end, is coming up with ways how we can educate everyone. This is a big monster, especially if you look even into the educational fields. There's many different learning styles. So one, we have to appreciate that. But we have to really appreciate everyone's background. I wasn't in attendance, but I believe Meg Stone gave a presentation about sports science, strength and conditioning at an NSCA conference. And I think there was a slide that showcased, and I don't know what it was representing, but really it was sport coaches and their respective academic backgrounds. And then on the right hand side, you had strength and conditioning in their respective backgrounds. So I mean, with the sport coaches, there was a vast difference. There was a ton of things going on, and then on the strength and conditioning side, and even we could even say within sports nutrition, sports psych, athletic training, physical therapy. It's all within these human sciences. So, that's a very interesting challenge. So, when I was young, we'd really try to educate from this is how it has to be. That doesn't really go that far. So, we have to be very strategic with how we do it. We have to be very non-threatening with how we do it. And we just need to just create a good medium so we can have some good dialogue just back and forth. Because again, we come from different just types of fabric. So, it has to be appreciated, and we must work, to fuse this stuff together. So that's kind of the big thing within the athletic department, kind of globally. The exciting part about our strength and conditioning department is, well, I mean, it's a phenomenal place to work. I'm not going to be at the CSCCA, but if you are, please go and see the staff's presentation on empowering the intern. I know that there's a lot of people that have intern programs. Some are doing a lot, and some maybe not doing a lot. But the envisionment of our intern program is really spearheaded by Bill Maxwell, and then our intern coordinator, Gabriella Quiggle. And they do a phenomenal job on ensuring that we are really empowering our interns and really allowing them to be different. It's completely okay. We want them to be different. We want you to kind of find your own path. And, fundamentally, their only objective really there really is to learn, right? Yes, they have to do, some cleaning here and there, but, they are a part of our system. They're kind of organically built in. The presentation is about how we kind of go about that. So that's pretty exciting. So again, if you're at the CSCCA in Nashville this year, please stop by afterwards. Say hello to everyone if you could. They would really appreciate that. What else? We're finding, this is the end close of our spring semester. So we have the summer coming up. So this is always the time of going, what did we do well as a department? What did we not do well? And so it's really a year debrief of starting to think about all these things and what do we need to do to improve? What do we need to do within ourselves as a department? What do we need to do individually? But then what do we need to do to help enable our entire athletic department to succeed more? So we're continually just working on those things. What else? Track and field. So I'm the strength coach for the entire track and field program. This year's been great. There's been a lot of changes actually. So we have a new director. He was the men's sprint coach as well. So then he got promoted up into the director. Then we have two new coaches, our throws and then our mid-distance coach. So that has been very interesting since I've been with track ever since I've been here, since August of 12. So really helping Coach Woody out with his new roles and responsibilities and things that he hasn't maybe dealt with before, learning two other coaches' kind of philosophies and having them get integrated into what we feel is a pretty neat situation with how we work. And I think probably with the two new ones is learning to work with a strength coach that's much different, I think. Sees track for what it is and not having a big bias within strength and conditioning. Understanding the programming, load management, etc. So, that's been fun. That's been fun kind of going through that process with them. So the kids that were supposed to do well are doing really well. I mean, outcomes have been pretty successful this year, both on men's and women's side. Um, you know, I'm not too big on stats or anything in terms of, where would we sit within the Big Ten based off of our best performances, because at the end of the day, when it comes down to a conference championship, it's a matter of what do we do that day,
Mm-hmm.
from a collective standpoint. But um, our results across both men and women are up there. So we're doing, some things well. Um, so we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Big Tens is in a couple weeks, and then 2 weeks after we have regionals, and then hopefully we're afforded the opportunity to have a number of our student athletes go on to nationals. So
Awesome.
yeah, that's kind of where the excitement is right now.
So let's backtrack a little bit. You talked about how you guys are going through sort of an evaluatory period for both, individually and holistically. Since this is probably something a lot of people are doing right now, let's touch on that. Let's see, you know, put us in the meeting room. Tell us how that goes, where things are looking, and how that process is run. I'm assuming by Coach Maxwell.
Yeah, Coach Maxwell, he gives a lot of us just autonomy to kind of run with things too. I mean, he has expectations, but he wants us to identify problems quickly and find solutions. I mean, he doesn't hold us down in that regard. Um, Gosh, in terms of what is being said, again, it's just furthering this integration idea and um, getting much more comfortable with it because maybe some coaches are not as much about maybe having a strength coach, maybe discussing quite a bit about their own training load, management, how they sequence things, how they, just simply how they pick drills, having those conversations. But then that means that all of us, including, say, athletic trainers as well, we have to be really educated with a lot of these aspects within the training and coaching theories and draw from our experiences, draw on their experiences, and then coming up with, hopefully a better intervention. And then with that intervention, then sharing with them what would, well, first and foremost, having just better discussions and more productive discussions about how do we get integrated from our assessment? How do we build profiles? And then based off that, how are we going to then build our training together? How are we going to build therapy within? How are we going to develop regeneration, recovery elements together, and not just in these siloed areas? And then what is our monitoring and evaluation set up for these respective teams or just individuals? So, and then educating along the way about, again, if whatever goes up or down, whatever metrics, what they mean, how do we respond? And then with that is setting up, I think probably one of the most challenging pieces is the communication line, between it all. When are we going to be meeting? When are we going to be talking? How do we do this? So, I'm going to share quite a bit of that in Virginia this year because we have a pretty neat setup. I mean, within track and field, we have to clean it up even more. But that's been a pretty big piece about how do we keep all of these people engaged on to this athlete-centered approach, because that can get very tricky. So those things, continuing going, okay, where do we go now with our internship program? Because again, we rely quite a bit on our interns. And I say that because it's not about cleaning up things. It's about actively getting better because they are a part of our program. And when they go out into the field, we really generally want them to be very successful and provide a good product to whatever student athletes, whatever, clientele or whoever they're going to be working with. That's very important to us. So, but then working with this athlete-centered approach, especially say within track and field, I would be absolutely lost without the interns, because I'm flying around. And if you would say walk in, and I invite anyone to come over, but if you walk in during, say, when there's throwers in there, when there's women's sprints, when you have some guys mid-distance, yeah, those are some different teams, if you will. But then there's all these individual elements that are changing about, what are like the meets coming up? What are the respective things happening within that day of training? Maybe if they were being assessed on TMG or a mega wave, how did we adjust for that day? And there's a lot of chaos going on. But that's, to me, that's what we have to do. And so a lot of these other things that are kind of like globally just making sure that things are being executed well, et cetera, we're all actively coaching, but there's sometimes where I have to zoom in onto a kid and really kind of have maybe a heart-to-heart, or I have to be adjusting quite a bit based off what I'm seeing already. And then there's maybe 15, 20 other kids that are operating as well. So sometimes my eye can't see everything. So I rely quite a bit on them. Gosh, what else? Yeah, I mean, those are probably the biggest things. Besides making our own staff meetings more productive, we think that we do a pretty good job on that because we meet a weekly every Wednesday. But and probably just expanding more on our own department-wide education just internally. We started that more. It's more or less just strength coach education, if you will, like if you'd want to call it that, where Bill Maxwell is presenting to us and then we're just jamming back and forth. Lindsay Dickelman's doing the same thing, myself, et cetera, et cetera. So we all enjoyed that. So I think that we'll probably continue on that quite a bit more. Yeah, so that's probably in a nutshell kind of like what's going on from our side. From a debriefing thing within, say, track and field, I'm already writing up. I already have pages of things that I think that we've been doing well, things that I don't think that we're doing well, because there's no systems that that's perfect by any means. But it's what's nice though, especially within track, is we have a good relationship where I can be brutally honest, and they're going, okay, like how do we solve this problem? So once we then have identified all of our problems, then hopefully, by the summertime and whatnot, we have enough time where we can regroup, we can find solutions, go through the solutions. And so then when, our when August kind of rolls around, then we'll be ready to rock and roll again. So it's just an evolution. So.
No, that's awesome. And I think that really the model that you guys are putting together that we've talked about quite a bit is really going to take some people and have them take a step back and look at how inclusive a department actually can be, because there are so many people that look at it and it's just, it's like a square with four squares. I'm not going to step out and even consider what's going on in academia, and academia is not even going to care what's going on in sports medicine, and sports medicine is not really worried about what's going on in strength and conditioning, and it's, we're not going to fight and figure out what's going on in the sport practice. So the fact that you guys are able to include everybody and
again, like we're trying, trying, right? Like no program here has it perfect at all. But again, we know that we're moving there, and some teams are more ahead, than others, for many reasons. But, we're really, again, a lot of programs may have this multidisciplinary approach, but they're not interdisciplinary at all. And at the end of the day, when we look at, say, injury prevention, we look at success of just wins and losses, when we look at PRs, when we look at, say, academic status and health, it's a function of all. So it gets very complicated. It gets, at times there's heated conversations because maybe someone screwed up, maybe I screwed up. But getting to a point where our team is really close, and someone can tell me that I'm wrong, and you know what? Like, because I know about kind of the closeness of the group and how integrated we are, you fix it pretty quick. So, because again, you appreciate you kind of like your hierarchy within the success of the student athlete, so you're just not just a strength coach. So
Now, in the athlete-centered approach that you're using, I could see it being, I don't know if easier would be the word in like a track and field setting because it's so individual versus like softball or a basketball team where the whole is equal to the sum of the parts. Has there been more complications or ways that this has been different utilized when it's utilized in a, again, it's the wrong word, but in a team sport?
yeah, yeah. I mean, a team sport is a combination of many individuals, but then now you have then team-based principles as well. So the conversations are generally the same. Say, for instance, within softball, if you would have, let's just say practice, okay? Because we're assuming that when they get to their respective field of play for a competition, you're putting out a really good product, a very ready product. But obviously that's harder because now you've just multiplied things out, so it's exponentially harder to ensure that everyone is showing up when it matters. Everyone a part of the team, especially so someone like like basketballs and like whatnot. But how you say go about practice. Again, this has been probably elaborated by many other coaches that are probably doing this with, say, soccer, if you will. But even within some of the football programs as well, where if you have a script of generally what you're doing and you have some categories of the types of loads, what types of orthopedic demands, energetic demands, et cetera, about what these all do, and if you have some sort of a barometer to give you an indication about what is ready and what isn't ready, then you just start scaling these pieces back. And a good friend of mine, Carl Valley, says it, I think, pretty well. He goes, with all the things that we have available to us, we can't really break down doing 5 sets of 5 versus, say, 4 sets of 5. So you have your plan A, and this plan A is what you've had on paper. This is what you are expecting to happen, and then never anything more than that. And then plan B would be then just some sort of a derivative of that. So then that is, a volume adjustment. That's maybe drill adjustments. That's maybe whatever it is, rest interval. Just like whatever adjustments that you do. And then maybe then you have plan C, and plan C is maybe removal from a practice, active recovery, and then maybe it's just they just need some time. So maybe they're just actively there. They're writing down. Maybe they're helping out a manager or something like that, for that session, but they're still maybe actively involved, to some degree. And that's, honestly, like when we talk, especially, with even just our individual athletes, we talk about, being in a band, and, we want our athletes, to be working within this band. Like this is our acceptable band. And if athletes are outside of this band, we need to then appreciate where are we in our competition year. Are we in a preparation period? Are we in a competition period? Are we in a transition period? And so maybe if we're in a preparation period in our general phase, if they start maybe going outside this band a little bit, maybe that's going to be okay. Like we don't know yet. But especially once it starts coming down into this competition period, especially for sports where every single game matters, like basketball, everything matters, because you need to, say, win X amount of games to whatever, Within track and field, not really. I mean, yeah, sure, you need to maybe qualify for regionals within a meet or something, but at the end of the day, in our world, the only thing that really matters is, say, Big Tens. So, um, but those are all the kind of the same discussions, but it's taking maybe the days, like the many days before a competition, and really just trying to, like, if we have a big scatter of where all these kids are at, we're really just trying to then bring them down into this funnel. So ultimately, just the days before, we have a more ready product before, like when it matters. Again, I think most of the team coaches are pretty receptive to this idea, but more so it's about allowing them to understand what maybe all of their drills and activities and how they sequence maybe a practice out. And then with all the things that we're doing, and then identify the targets that we're trying to go after. But then if we have these monitoring pieces in place, what are the things within our practice script that we can easily, quickly modify? Because at the end of the day, we don't want our sport coaches to be looking at their script and be going, okay, this athlete, I need to do this and this and this. And okay, now how do I logistically do this? Like, we need to create easier systems for them to make action quick. So that's a big step. That takes a lot of time. Because on the track, it's relatively pretty easy. Within a team sport, a lot of moving parts. So,
Oh yeah.
but again, if you believe in that thinking, then it's just what has to be done. So,
That's that's absolutely awesome. I could see that being an extremely daunting task. I mean, that is kind of the direction that a lot of the football teams are going now, and just with the vast array of different positions. And as we both know, a drill that people may think is intensive may not be as intensive as the ones that they think are, the stuff that they should be doing the day before a game. Um,
yeah. And then just like this word intensity, I mean, just as simple as it may be to maybe like say you and I, that may have a completely different definitional meaning to a sport coach. So, without saying no, this is what it is, we need to go, okay, let's sit back. I'm not yelling. I'm not telling you that you're wrong. It's just this is maybe what we're thinking about when we say intensive, but what type of intensive? So really bringing them along with this, because we have to value their perspective and then just their know-how within managing their players, the game, the technical pieces, the tactical pieces. So, again, we're support staff.
mhm.
So we need to support them as much as we possibly can. And some people don't like that because they're like, oh, well, I don't get paid enough to do this and this. And it's like, okay, well, that's fine. So um, just understand. I think that most people are probably going towards this direction because you look at any successful business, it's just how they operate too. So, why does it have to be different within sport?
Right.
So,
But at the same time, too, as you said, we are just support staff. So I think the place that people kind of get hung up on would be the absoluteness of all of these things. Looking and saying, well, readiness says you can only do X. So if you cross the Great Seal, then all of a sudden the building collapses. Or, you know, I'm
that's right.
telling you, you can't do this or you can't do this. I mean, it's just, again, at the end of the day, information is just information that's trying to help guide someone towards a decision. And it's not something that ever is going to be the end all be all in any sort of these decision making
No,
processes.
but before you play your cards, if you can have as much information as possible before you play your cards, then, we're just trying to increase the probability that we're going to make a right decision. That's all we're trying to do.
Exactly.
So,
Yes. And we're just trying to
but
help
that's
that.
like the whole thing with Omega Wave, with GPS, with questionnaires. I mean, it's just all providing some insight. Anytime where we think that we're going to have some sort of 100% predictive model is insane.
Oh, and it's funny. So we were talking this week about, just looking back on the season, and we found that when certain things were certain ways, we only won 32% of the time.
Yeah.
And when they were the opposite, we won 72% of the time. So the immediate reaction that everybody has when they see this is, "Holy mackerel! It better never be this way."
Sure.
And it's like, guys, hey, hold on. We still won when we did this.
Yeah, yeah.
Just because it's over here doesn't mean Chicken Little's right. It just
Right.
means maybe it's not, if we're playing for the A10 championship the next day, maybe that's not what we want to do. No, I mean, of course, one season, I mean, an N of 30 isn't anything that's going to be like, woohoo. But it's interesting how people, they kind of like to look at this and then all of a sudden allow it to be the second coming, almost like a deity, if you may, because numbers don't lie. Well, I'm pretty sure that when Jordan scored 64 in the Garden and he had 106-degree fever, probably wouldn't have great readiness readings that day. Sometimes you just got to do what you got to do.
Absolutely. When it's game time, you're still going to go,
Yeah,
unless there's some big medical probably reason,
yeah.
you know.
Like
But
you
yeah,
broke your leg.
yeah. But as you know, after Jordan did that, there was a big cost.
Oh yeah,
Big cost. I mean, but can do we have enough time to pay it back?
exactly,
So, yeah.
exactly. Well, Landon, this has been absolutely awesome, man. The glimpse into what you guys are doing there and kind of the preview for what your talk is going to be. Really excited, dude. Really excited, and I know from our talks that that this is really some game-changing stuff that people need to take a step back and look at themselves intrinsically as a department and a staff, and understand that there are better ways for everyone to work together. Now, it's just a model that you guys have that's beginning to work well for you, but there are ways to manipulate and interpret and bring that into other people's settings. It's really going to be a mind-opening experience for those that are able to sit down and take it in.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Thank you. That sounds like it's going to be an amazing talk. Um, so, so I better show up.
Yeah, get on the plane.
Yeah, I mean, because I think at the end of the day, with the time afforded to talk, it's really just to share the workflow and to share how, especially with track and field, how we talk, how we communicate, how we write things together, how we monitor, and just being very honest about it, because then there's I think too many things that are going on where people get sucked into maybe these ideas and concepts and they get really overwhelmed and going, gosh, are people really doing all of what they're saying? And honestly, a lot of the times they're not. So, I want to be very, very, very honest with what I'm going to provide, because then if people then have the sense of, gosh, you know what, like I could probably do 60% of that, then my selfish of me wants them to kind of go out and let this thing grow and then share what are they doing. Because the one thing about presenting for me, it's about connecting with people and really just getting back, what are they doing, maybe with any of the little bits and pieces that I have shared that have maybe helped them out. Because as you know, I'm a selfish man when it comes to info. So, hopefully I spark a couple people to kind of do some things, and I just want to just hear back from them later. So, and then most importantly, I want to jam outside of the presentation, because that is a phenomenal time, especially in Virginia.
Yeah.
So,
And
yeah, I look forward to doing it.
we're setting it up for it, man. It's going to be great.
Good.
Sitting out there afterwards, just sitting out there by the lake, talking, hanging out, cooking out there, having a few drinks.
Nothing better.
Yeah, starting to let information flow.
There
Well,
you go.
appreciate you taking the time out this
Yeah,
afternoon, man.
absolutely, Jay.
And
All right,
we will
man.
talk soon, brother.
Okay. All right. Bye bye.
And a huge thank you to today's guest, University of Iowa's Landon Evans. Awesome talk, guys. Really excited to hear what he's got to say at the 2015 seminar. Really, really fascinating. When you're able to get an in-depth look at what people are doing and how they're actually building their program and evolving as the time goes forward, to what we're looking at more is kind of the wave of the future is this athlete-centered approach and bringing everyone together to work as one unit for the student athlete. It really is fascinating. I hope you guys enjoyed the talk and are as excited to see Landon here in July as we are. And as always, guys, any comments, thoughts, questions, please leave them below. If it helped you out, if you really enjoyed it, please share it, tweet it out, throw it up on Facebook, whatever it may be. We're just trying to spread the word, trying to get good information out there from good coaches, and we hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you very much for your time, guys. Hope you enjoyed the talk, and we look forward to speaking with you again soon.